I've been Minister of National Security for a very long time. So most of the systems in Zimbabwe, I created them. So they always remember who their godfather is. So if you plan against me, I get to know.
Mnangagwa zviya havana kana one mustreet kid wavanorova vaya akawa pasi. He is a weak man. So kana vachitaura kuti tichakurovai ngavazvizive kuti vari kutaura masoja kwete ivo. Don't confuse people who are afraid of the gun and people who are afraid of you. Those are two different things. Saka zvimwe zvese zvamunenge muchitaura izvi kuzvitaura because makawanda kuseri kwepfuti dzamunenge muchiziva kuti ndimi munadzo isi hatina. Ngatigovane yake uone. And this is what people do not understand, that there are individual interests and then there are state interests. But the people who are pushing individual interests, they use state resources to attack individuals, and they appear to be strong when they are weak.
It is very clear that the fight that we're currently witnessing is between the Zimbabwean military and the power structures that Emmerson Mnangagwa has created. This is why I have so much respect for Emmerson. He always says the truth. But the issue is that what's our response to his utterances? But I guess that's exactly what we are seeing now. People have noticed that this man is very disrespectful. So it's time for him to serve him the same menu that he always been serving for the past 4 decades. It's an interesting time ahead. There are also tissues that are circulating right now where the allegation that they're thinking of firing Chiwenga. I can only imagine how that is going to turn out. Because Emmerson Mnangagwa underestimated Chiwenga. He's bigger than what you can think. Imagine someone that you wanted to eliminate and then he's serving you day in, day out. Can that send a very strong message? Stick around because there's more that we're going to be looking at today. Interesting days ahead. Okay, what Mnangagwa doesn't see as well is that the same games he's been playing is exactly what he's receiving right now. It's time. And also, I wanted to read this message. I quote from Stevie Biko. He said, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. He said it. You know, one thing that I noticed that our forefathers were actually very wise. Extremely wise. There's a statement that was written by a former CIO that I think Zimbabweans, you need to pay attention. Let's go through it together. A life in service, a stand on principle by RTD Dios Shepherd Mupeswe of the CIO and 2028 parliamentary election aspirant. I served the Zimbabwean state for 2 decades as an intelligence operative. Those two years were not merely an occupation, but there were some acid tests. The CIO did not simply train me, but it forged my character, sharpened my instincts, and shaped my understanding of Zimbabwe, its people, history, aspirations, and its destiny. What I cherished most about that service was its reach across the full spectrum of society. I engaged with the humble worker on the shop floor, the poor villager, the struggling citizen, and forgotten communities with corporate executive in boardrooms, the highest offices of the political authority. In doing so, I came to know Zim not as an abstract idea, but as a living and breathing nation defined by its people. Yet the work demanded resilience. Serving in the internal security branch of the CIO often meant being misunderstood, particularly by politicians who were neither grasped nor respected by the nature of our mandate. Engagement across political divides was not betrayal, but was duty. Still, accusations came, labels were assigned. In those moments, one learned to endure, angered by the knowledge that one's superiors understood the mission and stood behind it. Over my 20 years of service to the state, I had the honor of direct interaction with some of the most consequential figures in our nation's history. Mnangagwa, Chiwenga, the late Robert Mugabe, even Ian Smith as a farmer in Shirugwe. Also, I observed the late Changira closely from his time in the labor movement to taking leadership of the National Constitutional Assembly up to the formation of the MDC. His struggle for democratic space right up to the government of national unity, all being critical chapters of our national story. Not that when I entered public service in 1995, both Mnangagwa and Chiwenga were already pillars of the state, men shaped by the liberation struggle. Mnangagwa in particular, profoundly influenced by understanding of the need for Zimbabwe's sovereignty, the sacrifices upon which it was built. Though I was born and bred in Mashonaland West, Midlands province became my first home, and my deployment to this province after a training exposed me to the depth of ED's political and historical footprint. It was not patronage that drew me closer to his ideals, but conviction and shared values rooted in the liberation ethos. I then retired in 2015 at the age of 44. Yet retirement did not extinguish my sense of duty. When the G4 faction under Grace Mugabe began what I perceived as a reckless assault on the liberation legacy, targeting war veterans and state institutions, I could not remain silent. I returned not in official capacity, but in spirit, voice, and to defend the principles I believed were under threat. I stood firm until the transition that gave birth to what became known as the Second Republic under the leadership of Mnangagwa. Yet today, I find myself at another defining moment. I stand where I have always stood, on the firm ground of principle, guided by history, loyalty to the nation, unwavering belief in accountability. Yet I'm now labeled a sympathizer of Vice President Chiwenga. So be it. For I ask, what has truly changed? Is it the man who has remained consistent in his convictions, or the leadership that has drifted from his founding promises? What I once condemned under a declining Mugabe administration, namely the manipulation of power, the erosion of institutional integrity, the betrayal of the people's trust, I now witness again. In good conscience, I cannot remain silent simply because the faces have changed. For in the end, history will not judge us by the factions we were assigned, but by the values we chose to defend. I chose Zim. Wow, that's an interesting read. But I think what we are not identifying is that we actually have an identity crisis. We have been playing into Mnangagwa's gallery for the past 4 decades. I don't know where do we draw the line between the liberation struggle and criminality. I'm desperate to know. Where do we actually draw the line? Because I read what Steve Biko said. You know, Steve Biko was one of the most influential politicians during the apartheid era, right? I have never heard even the ANC or Ramaphosa spending most of the time focusing on the liberation struggle. Not that it's not important. It is quite very important. What I've witnessed and what I've seen, I would want to use a very simple analogy. Let's say my mom died in 2008. But I wanted to show you something that we all can pick up from the ZANU-PF culture they created. So my mom died. Let's assume my mom had died and she left a lot of wealth, maybe for me and my siblings, right? But that wealth is in my name. I have access to the wealth. Imagine if every time my sibling says we are hungry and all I'm doing is that I'll tell them about my mom's death. Or my mom died, maybe I was the one that was looking after her. I was looking after my mom. All this wealth, they are mine. I should be the only one who have access to that wealth. This is exactly how ZANU-PF have been operating over the years. Is using the liberation struggle as a weapon to hate our people. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's an incredible thing for us to know where we came from. But how does that going to help us? If we are failing to deliver life today to our people, and again, forgetting that most of our Zimbabweans, in fact, all Zimbabweans, have scars that emanated from the very same struggle. I lost my brother. My grandfather, may his soul rest in peace. He looked after the military. That's how my brother was killed, because he was sold out. And Zimbabweans, all of them, across the country, have scars, even some that are in the diaspora. So when you are not focusing on the few people that you're angered on, and disregarding those that died during the liberation struggle, whom we all know that we are actually their descendants, and then abusing us day in, day out under the guise of that very same struggle, what are you actually doing? This is why I've always been saying the politics in Zimbabwe currently is based by deception. We're deceiving each other all the time. Is it necessary, honestly? Absolutely not. It's not necessary, but we're doing it. I pray that we understand the importance of living now, respecting our people now. I'm saying, honestly, delivering water, electricity, give them a free society where they can do whatever they want. They don't have to wait for you to bring a 10 kg of roller meal, a 2 liter of cooking oil, 2 liter of flour. We don't need that, because some of the people you're giving sunflower oil, they don't eat sunflower oil. Some don't even drink sugar. They should be drinking maybe stevia because they've got maybe high blood pressure or something. They've got sugar diabetes. I'm just pointing out that you want to decide how people should live, not them living the way God has created them. That really bothers me a lot. Identity crisis.
English, Indians, fortunately, West Africans on the whole are comfortable because the level of indoctrination they suffered was different from what we suffered. But we have to wake up and start changing that trajectory and that identity. The name is important because it's the first line of identity. Your name immediately says something. You know, when you have a blind and no one can see what's on the other side, and somebody says, if you don't mind me using the word Victoria, and they can't see you, they will assume you're English. They will assume you're English. If you say Donderai and they can't see you, they will assume you are Shona. And it's so, and it goes on and it goes on. We have to become proud of our identity. And that is the first line of identity. How do we do that? We have to talk about it. We have to make people appreciate. Because I'm actually realizing that a lot of people think it's just a name. My boy, it's just a name. Do you understand? So this damage has happened over time and it's been systematic. It is not an accident.
I agree with Shingim Tasa. Even if you look at Nigerians, have got their own issues. But men, you can't take away the tradition and the culture. You cannot. Look at South Africans with all different languages. But you can't take away that identity of being a South African. It's so unique and distinctive. But as we speak Zimbabweans, we have no identity. Why? Because we allowed criminality to hide behind the liberation struggle, abusing its own descendants under the guise of, we went to war. But the fact remains, we all have scars that emanate from the very same struggle. I pray that we understand that. If we do not correct this issue, no matter how we try to grandstand, nothing will work in Zimbabwe until this issue of identity is resolved. Allow Zimbabweans to be Zimbabweans. You don't have to belong to ZANU-PF. You don't have to belong to opposition because if we look at what happened in 2023, less than 5 million people registered to vote, meaning the majority of Zimbabweans did not register to vote, didn't even vote for anybody. Is it fair to disregard the entire population because of the few people obsessed with jobs? People in ZANU-PF need to carry this burden. Zimbabweans are struggling with jobs because of the poverty that was created over the years. We must never forget that. See what money can do to those that have power. Chatunga Mugabe proved that. My prayers goes out to Tobias because I couldn't agree more with so many people on social media that he's paying the price. Maybe he was paid. These are just allegations. Whatever the deal was, I pray for Tobias. Poverty is definitely a curse. Anyway, I'm sending also my love and light and prayers for those, some of our brothers who are in prison right now. I'm not going to identify them by their political party. I identify them as Zimbabweans because they are our people. They are our brothers. This culture needs to die. It must die now. Let's look at each other as Zimbabweans. Not because we belong to a certain political party. That is definitely diabolical. I don't always agree with Betha Monzora, but she nailed it. I'll explain to you why. Chatunga Mugabe is behaving like Mnangagwa, but we're getting there very quickly. Let me read her tweet. She said, in my humble opinion, Bellarmine Mugabe is reckless and dangerous, and he's just gotten away with a very serious crime. He's too old and too rich to rehabilitate, even if his family were to attempt to do so. He's a danger to society. I couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you why I couldn't agree more. Because this is exactly how Emmerson Mnangagwa behaved over the years. ZANU-PF people knew this guy was very dangerous. But what did they do? They kept on protecting him. In fact, he was being promoted by Mugabe. With all his flawed and ruthless character, they kept promoting him. But I'll tell you the character of Chatunga. You know why people say it's dangerous? It's because eventually, if he doesn't stop or if he doesn't get the help that he needs, you hurt his own mother. I remember I grew up very close to a family that had the same setup. They were very successful, had so many kids. And most of their kids died because they were very disrespectful towards their parents. And now they had their last born, a boy child. He did the worst. They kept on protecting him. And he started beating his own mom. I think the prison could have helped him by at least try to rehabilitate for the next 2 years. If it was the one in prison, he was actually going to get the help that he needs. As a parent, it's hard to see your child going to prison. But trust me, it can also be actually a way to freedom. This is why I think Mnangagwa, no matter what, he should be held accountable. Because if you want to see change in him, let him face his music. He's sending innocent people to prison right now under your watch. I mean, recently we saw old people, our war veterans, the mothers and fathers were sent to prison by the same person, Emmerson Mnangagwa. And he wants to get away with it. Life don't work that way. You sow evil, that's exactly what you reap. Anyway, Mnangagwa made a deadly mistake by underestimating Chiwenga, is what we're looking at very shortly. He definitely crossed a line when he started harassing his wife. One thing that we undermine is that don't mess up with someone's wife. Mnangagwa demoted Mini. After that, we heard recently that he even sent some of his gangs to go and turn his family upside down in Malawi. I think you heard that during the presser from the highly esteemed comrade Knox Chivero. You know, this kind of actions has been going on for a long time in Zim. I mean, you guys have heard that sometimes some people would work with the wife of someone to destroy their husband. There's been a lot of speculation. Some of them I can't mention because honestly, I'm respectful either the dead or the ones that are alive. But it is a culture we have nursed over the years of allowing people to tamper with families, especially crossing a line of trying to fight someone's wife. You see, I know it's work, but Mini doesn't report directly to Mnangagwa, does she? I'm just saying this because I am as a woman. If you're another woman and you're trying to fight my husband, no, you fight Mama. Because Mama is going to stand at the doorway to defend the people that she loves. You're crossing the line. We know the history that Chiwenga first. With his ex-wife, there's been a lot that man has gone through. A lot has gone down in his political career or in his life when it comes to Mnangagwa and his gangs. Take a listen.
Say my time. Noda kupayamwedza musi waEzekiya. Hezekiya akatonga maJudha kwenguva yakareba akaita mambo ane mukurumbira. Akazoona iye asingafanirwi kufa. Achifanira kutonga maJudha nekusingaperi. So Mwari akapinda chirwere maari ndokubva arwara achida kuona kuti uyu munhu akachimbika iro. Nobva atuma Isaya muprofita wake tukachinotaurira muranda wangu Hezekiya kuti aronge zvemusha wake nekukasira nguva yake yakwana. Ndakuda kumutora. Hapo Hezekiya wakaenda kumadziro emba yeumambo ndokutanga kurova madziro. Imi muri Mwari akaita sei? Hakuna umwe mambo akatonga vanhu ava kudarika ini ndiri ndinogona. Hakuna umwe futi achakwanisa kuvatonga kunze kwangu. akazhambarara akafunga achabuda musodzero. Jobho akati Jobho wadzokera futi kuna Isaya zvikanzi iwe dzokera kubenzi rangu riya unoritaurira kuti ndanzwa kuchema kwaro saka ndichariwedzera makore magumi nemashanu. Chimupai poriji yemaonde adye kuti apore. Shasha nobva yapora akasimaira nobva yasvika. But Mwari aiziva zvakanga zviri kuuya. Pakauya hondo yaNebhukadhinezari vasori iye manje nekuzungaira kuya ndokuchienda ndokubva anotaridza apuhwa ndokuigirwa zvipo ndobva achienda zvikanzi hande ndokurakidza pane arika isingakundwe ndokunorakidza arika avaya ndokudya avo ndokubva vati havasita kudzokera kwedu ndokuzoya nehondo yaasina kupedza haana kwaaita kana mwedzi mitatu hatina mbonzwa paikanyorwa mubhaibheri. Akazopedza 15 years ari pasi mujera. Mwari akumutorera 15 years akamupa asi akanga ari pai.
It's time for Mambo Hezekiah to face the music. It's time. But you see, Mambo Hezekiah is not putting brakes at all. Why? Because he gotten away with a lot. He thinks this is a joke. That's what he thinks. So no, he actually promoted his own son. Yes, his own son.
I'm very grateful to the commanders that trained us to be where we are today. I've been in the army for 16 years. It's very important to adhere to the discipline of the army. And with my fellow promoted lieutenant colonels, we will make sure that we maintain the discipline. We work as according to the rules and regulations of the army, and that we work to the expectations of the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Force.
I told you that Chiwenga is not, people think that he's unwise. No, he's actually very wise. Show me a man who would serve someone who wanted to kill him. Show me one. Show me one. That kind of grace, I need it, y'all, because I would never. I would never, unless you know where you step on. You're like, I'll get you. I'll get you. And even the way that he speaks now, it's like, who do you think you are? And I'm like, Chiwenga, that's exactly what we need. Someone has to dare Emerson Mnangagwa. That's why I had so much respect for the late Comrade Geza. May his soul rest in peace. I love men who comes in and said, who do you think you are? That's where the greatness of a man is. I've always said to Zimbabwean men, you can't tell me you're failing some of people like Vana Wikno who can't even breathe. You can't do that. You are stronger than you think. Stand up and say, not in this country. So when Chiwenga speaks the way that he does, I'm like, yeah, you are in the right direction, say. That's how it's done. If you're dealing with a monster, you're not going to be nice. The time for diplomacy is gone. It is gone. That's why even all the diplomatic channels are completely closed. Because people have realized that, no, Zimbabwe is being destroyed not because they don't have the capacity, by criminality. Face a criminal. And that is the end of our problems. I can tell you that. Now the anointing of his son, the son has the nerve to say, we listen to what the Commander-in-Chief say. Not the Constitution, not the Commander-in-Chief. The Commander-in-Chief is my daddy, so what he says goes. In fact, I heard some speculation that he actually said he's the second in line. So all these moves, this hoping that he can wake up tomorrow and be a president of Zimbabwe, that will not happen. In fact, I've got one question to ask you, Zimbabweans. Would we ever trust anyone with the surname Mnangagwa again on the throne? Let me know after what we've been through as a country. Would we ever trust anyone with the surname Mnangagwa again in politics? Let's be honest. I do not. And I know even some of your comments will definitely align with mine. It said, let's look at that comment. This guy has been dropping quite a lot. It says, President under 2030, Chikora Zigananda. He really has been, he's like my other online crush, literally. I crush on some of his tweets. And I'm suspecting, okay, but let's look at what he said. He said, is Shaun Mnangagwa about to set a record for the shortest tenure as a lieutenant colonel in Zimbabwe? It will not last long. True. Because once the government changes, the same modus operandi of the father, either you are retired or... You see, the story of Mnangagwa reminds me of Muammar Gaddafi's son. You know the story that happened recently? Yeah, Muammar Gaddafi, that made people's lives hell. And you know what I've said in some of my last videos, that the same place where Muammar Gaddafi was anointed, Mugabe was anointed, Mnangagwa is very close to some of those guys. I mean, you saw it on God Mafia. He's on speed dial with those gangs in Dubai. They don't see that throne of the president as a leadership. They see it as their own place to control and to eat and drink where everyone starves. Zimbabweans are being given packets. We don't need your packets. We want to choose the kind of food we want to eat. When you give me sunflower oil, what if I want olive oil? What if I want coconut? What if I want avocado oil? Who told you that I want to use sunflower oil? But that's what they do. You know what? Because they think they're better than others. They treat you like trash. So you're going to be driving on pothole, even though you work tirelessly. They collect all the cash, spending it at will. I'm going to look into Chivayo and some of his corrupt issues that he just came out recently. Look out for that information in the next video. But let's send out on this one. Is they think they are better than other children. You know, I know Cyril Ramaphosa is not perfect. But one thing that I respect him for, he has never wanted his kids to be closer to politics, even his wife. But it's so uniquely to Zimbabwe, where wives end up thinking that they're actually the Zimbabwe themselves and bullying everyone around. I pray it's ending now. It is ending now. It's a job. Your husband is at work. You don't own the country. It's a job. He's employed by the people. He's accountable to the people. But I want you to know that didn't end well for Muammar Gaddafi's son when he came back. Let me read what Al Jazeera reported. His name is Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, son of the former leader, killed in Libya. Gaddafi's political team says masked men killed him at his home and Zintani in a cowardly and treacherous assassination. They knew that more trouble is coming. You need to go. You see, I was laughing this morning when I was looking at Esther. You know, it's in the Bible that you talk about the favor of God, etc. Most people don't even want to talk about two things that stood up in that scripture. The first thing is that someone lost a marriage overnight because she disrespected her husband. Vashti lost a marriage overnight. So when I hear people say God hates divorce, I actually don't know what they're talking about. If you disrespect your husband, oh my God, I just touched the last nerve. I know women will come after me. Anyway, the second thing that people want to ignore is that eventually the king asked the question, what do you want? After all, I can give you even the half of my kingdom. And then ordered that Haman, who had built a tower for Mordecai to be killed, must be hanged. And he was killed. So read the Bible with understanding. God has never said when we read the Bible, we must accept every abuse from any person from the streets. No. Once a person becomes disrespectful, what do? We act accordingly. I'm just saying. Let's move on and look at what the military have said, because they're not playing games. This is quite a very important message they're also sending to Emerson. So retired General Sigauke said, I'll be precise because I'm old enough to say what younger men can only think. I want you to know this page is definitely coming from the military. I made it clear that the fight now is between the structures of Mnangagwa that he built and also the Zimbabwean military, the actual military. So they're sending a very scathing message to Emerson. They said, I'll be precise because I'm old enough to say what younger men can only think. When a retired officer and I will name the case that everyone in uniform is already discussing. General Tafumane was recalled from retirement and within a remarkable short period promoted to a rank ahead of officers who never left this institution. Something fundamental is broken, not bent, broken. I'm not speaking about General Tafumane as a man. I do not impugn him personal honor. I am speaking about what the system communicated through that decision to every colonel, every brigadier, every major general who stayed, who went to Chimoyo when Chimoyo was difficult, who went to Fungwe when Fungwe was dangerous, who sent his children to school on a salary that could not cover the school fees, who buried his mother quietly because the posting never stopped, who never resigned, never complained publicly, never made himself politically useful because he believed that faithful service would speak for itself. To that man, the Fumane promotion said one thing with absolute clarity: your continuous service meant nothing. Your loyalty to this institution is worthless than someone's political usefulness. That is not my editorial opinion. That is the message received. I've spoken to enough people still inside to know exactly how it landed. I want those who made this decision to understand that a moral wound of this nature actually does to fighting institutions. It does not show up on a parade ground inspection. The men still stand straight. The boots are still polished. The salutes are still crisp. The institution still photographs well at ceremony occasions. But underneath the surface, in the officers' mess, in the staff college corridors, in the quiet conversation between men who have given 20 and 30 years to this uniform, something is curdled. It affects how a man performs because performance requires belief that effort will be recognized. Remove that belief and you remove the engine of excellence. It affects how he leads because a leader who feels betrayed by his own institutions cannot fully transmit conviction to those below him. It transmits instead a hollowness that his subordinates detect even when they cannot name it. And most devastatingly, it affects whether the next generation of promising officers decides to stay or to leave. The young lieutenant who is watching this, the captain with potential who is calculating his future, he is doing the mathematics right now. He's asking himself, if 20 years of faithful service can be leapfrogged by a record retired with the right connections, where should I stay? When your best people begin asking that question, you have already lost something you cannot recover by gazette notice. I have seen this before. I've seen it in other African militaries that are now shadows of what they once were. Institutions are not destroyed only by enemy fire, budget cuts, or equipment failures. They are destroyed slowly, invisibly, irreversibly when the internal covenant is broken. When the system signals repeatedly and unmistakably that the rules do not apply equally to everyone, that there is a category of officer whom the normal criteria are suspended because of what they represent politically. Once that signal is sent, it cannot be unsent. Every subsequent promotion board is viewed through that lens. Every appointment is interrogated for political motive. Trust the invisible infrastructure upon which all military effectiveness ultimately rests begins to resolve. Zimbabwe's defense forces were built by men and women who believed in the institution more than they believed in any individual. That belief is a true strategic asset, more valuable than any equipment procurement, any alliance, any modernization program. It must be protected. It must be deserved. Right now, it is being spent carelessly. At least now we are speaking the same language, all right? We are now speaking the same language. Emerson Mnangagwa must be sent packing. I've said it over and over. He completely destroyed Zimbabwe by his greed. He is selfish because he gotten away with a lot of crimes. It happens everywhere. Even when you're raising a child, I've spoken about Chatunga. If you do not discipline your child, I can guarantee you one day you feel so embarrassed by the behavior. So Mnangagwa is not attacking his own people because they supported him when he was committing heinous crimes against our people under the guise of politics. Brothers and sisters, Zimbabwe is bigger than politics. Any politician we ever sit in that chair, today or ever, Zimbabwe is bigger than them. I'm respectful though that finally the military is speaking adamantly, and I know that they will act. There's no way you can underestimate their efforts and what they're capable of doing, because they are the ones who plot Mnangagwa there. All his power structures were nowhere to be found, even though some of them were deployed in different countries committing crimes and coming back in Rolls Royce cars. That's very interesting. Do you know that recently a guard of the president of Eswatini committed, he unalived himself in front of the people, delegates, because of poverty? That's how evil those kingdoms are. And you want Mnangagwa to turn Zimbabwe into one? It will not work. Simple. I swear to God, I'll put my life on the line. Kingdom in Zim will not work. The country will go back to its people. Zimbabwe will rise. It will rise soon. The end of evil is now. And we mean business. We're not playing games here. We mean business. And I'm super excited. Again, I've never really respected the appointment of Tafumani, because he's actually one of the guys who abducted and tortured Justina Mukoko. A highly respected woman in society was tortured by this very same man who is now being called a commander of the defense forces. Surely, I agree with the military. Something has really gone wrong. People no longer get jobs because of merits. They get jobs because they're doing the dirty work for Emmerson Mnangagwa. It has to stop, and it must stop now. Anyway, you tell me what you think, guys, in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts. I love you so much. May God bless you, and may God bless Zimbabwe. Bye for now.